Hey everyone, I got a request from an agent last week to talk about subagency. If you're a Texas real estate agent, this update is big. Subagency is officially gone as of January 1st, 2026, under Senate Bill 1968. What does that mean for you? Let's break it down so you can stay compliant and protect your business. Here's what happened. Senate Bill 1968 removed the ability for subagency in Texas real estate transactions. So what is subagency? Before this change, if you brought a buyer to another broker's listing and you didn't have a buyer representation agreement, you could act as a subagent for the listing broker, provided the listing broker's policy allowed for subagency. That meant you owed fiduciary duties to the seller and not the buyer, even though you were the one working with the buyer. Well, that's over, starting at the beginning of next year. Now, you cannot act as a subagent, and listing brokers can't offer subagency in the MLS anymore. Although, before the effective date of Senate Bill 1968, subagency is allowed by law, in practice, we rarely, if ever, saw it in use. Under the current law, the listing brokers had to agree to allow for subagency. That meant that the listing broker would have to agree to allow another broker, not just an agent, to represent their seller. This posed some fiduciary liability on the listing broker. Remember, the distinction between subagency and intermediary. Subagency is when two different brokers are representing the seller. The intermediary relationship is when the same broker represents both the buyer and the seller. Without subagency, there are only two options for a broker who is wanting to work with a buyer. Represent the buyer as their agent. That means getting a signed buyer representation agreement before you start providing advice, negotiating, or showing homes. This is the safest route because it secures your commission and clearly defines your duties. Or you as the agent can show a property to any party without representation if you, 1, have not agreed either orally or in writing to represent the prospective buyer, 2, are not otherwise acting as a prospective buyer's agent at the time of showing, 3, do not provide opinions or advice regarding the property or real estate transactions in general, 4, do not perform any other act of real estate brokerage activity, and 5, you comply with the current requirements of disclosing representation and providing the IABS form prior to the showing. If you show a property to a buyer without a written agreement and start acting like their advocate, you could be in violation of the TREC rules, and you risk losing your commission. Agents must have written agreements with prospective buyers of residential property. It must be entered into prior to showing the real property, or if there is no showing, before the presenting of a purchase offer to a seller. The written agreement can be a full representation agreement or a showing-only agreement without representation if that is the only service that you are providing. So if you want some action steps, here are some ideas for you. Update your MLS settings, remove offers, if any, of subagency from your listings. Always discuss buyer representation up front. If they don't want to sign it yet, explain why it's important and how it protects both of you. Train your team. Make sure everyone understands the new way of doing business. This is also a great time to refresh your understanding of TREC's information about brokerage services, the IABS form, because you need to explain agency representation clearly. So for this week's tip, subagency is gone in Texas permanently. Get those buyer's agreements signed and stay compliant. If you have questions, send me a message at tipoftheweek@allegiancetitle.com. See you next time for more Texas real estate updates.